Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to identify ASP.NET server controls. So let's add a new item, and to do this demonstration we're going to create something called a user control. And I'm going to call it demo UC. And what a user control is really kind of a snippet of HTML that you can place in other ASPX pages. And it functions very similar to a server control like that we've been using from the toolbox, except that it'll reside in our solution, and we'll drag and drop it from the solution. And it will be typically composed of elements from other server controls. So we'll take a text box and a button, and let's say this is something that we wanted to use repeatedly in our web pages. So we could construct this as a user control, and it will look something like this. We'll have a text box and a button. Obviously we could style it and do other things with it, but we're just going to create this user control. Notice that the user control doesn't have HTML tags or body or head tags. That's because this is going to be placed in another page that already has them. So user control is relatively empty. The only thing it has is a directive that specifies the language and the code behind page, as well as some other things. So we'll save this, and in order to use this server control we need a page to place it in. So I'm going to add another web form, and I'll call it UC demo page. And if we look at this page, it's empty, but I can bring in that user control and just drag it into this page. Now look at the top and notice that we only have one directive initially, but when I drop this into the page, a second directive is added that says register this UC control. And it gets a tag prefix and a tag name, and you notice that that's very similar to when we see a tag that says ASP colon and then has a control name. It functions very similarly. And what will happen is that in the place of this UC tag, it'll take the code that's in our ASCX page and put it in place. And in fact, if you look in the design view, we can see that that text box and button now appears in our page. So let's run this and look at the resulting page. And what we see is we do in fact have a text box and a button. It doesn't do anything right now, but they're present. If we look at the page source, one of the interesting things to note is what the button and the text box are ID'd as. And we see that an ID has been associated with this text box and button. We didn't write this, but ASP.NET will construct this for us based on the name of the user control. It provides an underscore and then the name of the control. So one of the difficulties with this is that it's not always easy for us to predict what this will be. And we need to be able to predict this if we wanted to, for example, add some JavaScript to this page in order to do something with these controls on the client side. So often what we would do is build our page and then look at what the controls ID end up being and then write our JavaScript against that control. You can actually kind of control how this works by setting client ID property. or actually the client ID mode property. And if we set this equal to auto ID and run it, we can see we get the same thing. The UC name underscored and then the name of the control. If we change this to static, however, and if you forget what they are, you can just hit the equal and IntelliSense will tell you what the options are. If we place it in static and then view the page source, what we can see is now the ID properties are just whatever the controls are named without having the UC name next to it. Now suppose I were to have two of my controls in here. Let's see what that would look like. So now I have two of these UCs. And I'll take out the client ID mode for a bit and see what this looks like. We can see the advantage of the auto naming is that the controls are differentiated in their ID properties because they have the control name in them. Let's see what happens if I put client ID mode static. When I view page source, I can see now I have two inputs which are ID'd the same. That may be less than desirable, or it may actually be desirable. Depends on what you're trying to do. So, setting the client ID mode appropriately is important when you need to have access to the right controls, say from a JavaScript function. Thank you very much.